B1 family, good evening. Welcome to Blacklogic. So this evening, we're going to break down the differences when we're comparing the innovators, the inventors, the creators, the civil rights of Black Americans versus Black immigrants. And just as a trigger warning, this is not to be divisive, okay? This is not to be divisive, but this is to set a precedent of the greatness of what our ancestors have done and some of the things that we're still doing today. So this is only going to trigger the tethers. Now, our brothers and sisters, long distance cousins from the Caribbean as well as the African continent, those people who are trying to rebuild their country and make their societies better, this won't affect them. This won't hurt them at all. But you're going to have people who are butthurt to come out and speak ill will against some of our achievements, because we heard some of the racist tropes that, oh, the white man created that or the white man invented that. And we have to understand there's a stark difference between us and people that is part of the Black diaspora. Because today we're going to talk about a topic that's going to shake things up for FBA. And some of us are going to get the education and info that we need as intellectual ammunition against a lot of these tethers who come over here stating they're just over here for opportunities by not supporting and speaking against by the way of undermining Black Americans. And the evidence is undeniable. Now, and I know some folks want to downplay this, but when we talk about what Black American descendants of slaves have done for the U.S., let's be real, it's unmatched. And not only for this country, but also for the world. Because I'm gonna break it down, family. I got time tonight. I'm gonna break it down name by name, contribution by contribution. I can't name them all because we just have too many. But we're gonna draw some very real comparisons to Black immigrants from Africa and the Caribbean, because the facts are clear. Black Americans have contributed far more to building America and building America to be a safe country for everyone. So we're gonna back it up with some cold, hard history. Let's take, for instance, our brother Medgar Evans. Let's start off with Medgar Evans. And then I'm just going to highlight Medgar Evans very quickly. Okay, I'm going to highlight this brother very quickly, but we also need to know some of the adversity that he went through. Okay, but not just Medgar Evers. Okay, Thurgood Marshall. Okay, James Weldon Johnson. But we have to understand, family, that Medgar Evers was a warrior for justice, a man who laid down his life for the civil rights of Black Americans. And he was part of the NAACP. And this is when the NAACP were actually doing tangible things and moving the pendulum forward and breaking down barriers for Black Americans. So we're talking about the NAACP of old. But he was a field secretary for the NAACP, and he led efforts to desegregate schools, and he fought for voting rights in Mississippi, which was one of the most hostile environments that Black people can be at the time. So even through adversity, discrimination, bigotry, racism, all of those things, he just wasn't about talk. He organized boycotts and protests that shook up the entire system. He fought for the murder of Emmett Till to be investigated and used his position, okay, to bring national attention to the lynching of Black men. And let's not forget, Ever was assassinated for his work. This brother was actually assassinated for his work. His death sparked nation outrage and became a catalyst for the civil rights movement. So we can honestly say there's a Black immigrant leader who laid their life on the line for American freedom like Medgar Evers did? Absolutely not. Again, we're talking about Black Americans and Black immigrant tethers stating they have done more for America. We're not talking about Nelson Mandela. We're not talking about Marcus Garvey. No, we know the achievements they made for their countries, even to the point where Marcus Garvey had to come to America to kind of get the civil rights movement going on and people in Jamaica standing up because they wasn't supporting him at the time. But nonetheless, we're not talking about what they did for their country. We're talking about those black immigrant tethers stating they have done more for America by getting degrees and getting jobs. What have you done? What have you done for black people in general in America? I think nothing. I think nothing, because we won't really go down this man's whole life, but he's going to be highlighted because a lot of people really don't talk about Medgar Evers, because when a lot of people come to America, they found out about Martin Luther King, they found out about Malcolm X, they may find out about George Washington Carver. We're going to do some people that are popular, okay, to the black empowerment space, but they may not be so popular to black immigrants. So we're going to educate you guys, because a lot of you people do not know our history. We may know more of your history than you do. Now, don't take that the wrong way. I said some of us, not all of us, because we're not even watching for you guys like that. But these are the things that we have to go over and teach you who and what we are and where we came from. This next gentleman here, let me throw up a picture here. Thurgood Marshall. Thurgood Marshall, the first black Supreme Court justice who basically revolutionized America's legal framework, because he led the charge in the Brown versus Board of Education, one of the most pivotal cases in U.S. history. This man went toe-to-toe with Jim Crow segregation, and he won. He dismantled the doctrine of separate but equal. Okay, now a lot of people do believe that integration wasn't a good thing for black folk, but if we were not integrated with the rest of society of white people, they saw us as a major threat, not just a threat that we are today, but they saw us as a major threat. What them Negroes over there doing? They gathering up together, because when 2, 3, or 4 of you together is a gang, is a mob. Okay, so these are the things how they looked at it. But again, being a black immigrant tether, I know you may not understand that, and that's fine. Also, what Thurgood Marshall did, he was changing public education for generations of black students. Now, how many black immigrants are celebrated for creating systematic legal change in this country? Excuse me. Tell me, how many in this country? Not a single one can come to mind. Not a single one can come to mind what Marshall accomplished in reshaping the legal destiny of black Americans. I'll take it even farther. I'll take it even farther, family, because there's some things we have to point out that's very, very different for black Americans versus black immigrants. Because we have to understand, majority of the African country were colonized until around the late 50s to the 60s. But from that moment on paper, quote unquote, because of their independence from the European countries, were in charge of their own country and majority black. But these are some of the things that we had to go through, our family had to go through. Because when we look at the black codes, now, after the Civil War, Southern states enacted black codes to restrict freedom of those people who were newly released from slavery. And these laws were designed to maintain the racial hierarchy and control black labor. While slavery had been abolished, these laws ensured that our people remained tied to plantation. You would be emancipated and then still have to work at the same plantation. 1, because they didn't have the skills. 2, they didn't know what they're doing. And then 3, they boxed us in with these black codes. And it subjugated us to the whims of white employers. They even had vagrancy laws. These laws basically criminalized black people for not having a job or for simply loitering, which some of us are doing now, but we shouldn't. I'm just telling the truth. Sometimes we be hanging out and we shouldn't be hanging out. That's just the truth of it all. And if we were arrested, they were often forced into unpaid labor, basically mimicking slavery. We also had these apprenticeship laws where if you was an orphan or a child of a black family, and they deemed that the family could not take care of you. Listen to this, because you guys saw this around 5 years ago, where black children were being taken from their mothers. This is part of some very old laws back from the mid 1800s. Okay, right out of Emancipation Proclamation when that was signed. But these are the apprenticeship laws where either black orphans or children that law enforcement or the court system deemed that the parents could not take care of them, and those children went to white landowners, again mimicking the conditions of slavery. Okay, so these are some of the hindrance and roadblocks that we have essentially went to. Do we have to go over Jim Crow, family? I won't stay here long because we know about Jim Crow altogether. Denied voting rights, denied employment, denied education. Now, intermarriage, do what you do. Segregation. We had all of these things, from schools to transportation to water fountains, restaurants. We were separated. We couldn't do anything. Where they destroyed our towns, the towns that we built, we couldn't go to their towns and shop at their stores after they destroyed ours. We won't get into the vote disenfranchisement laws, literacy tests, poll tax, grandfather clause were all used to prevent black Americans from voting. What about Mississippi Plan of 1890? You guys familiar with that? Introduced residency requirements, literacy tests, and poll tax designed to exclude black voters without explicitly mentioning race. And a lot of you may be asking yourself, where is this information located? Where can I go and reference? Shout out to my brother, Dr. Claude Anderson, and Black Labor, White Wealth. And I just want to show you guys something very quickly here, okay? Our sister Rosa Parks, that's our sister Rosa Parks. She's a writer. Our brother Jackie Robinson made headways in baseball. Now, if you go back to the back of Black Labor, White Wealth, you're going to see an appendix with all of these laws that was made in order to stifle black progress. To stifle black progress, family. I'm not making this stuff up. And this is for the southern states. Now, there's a part for southern states and northern states. But you have laws in Maryland, segregation policy, Virginia, fugitive slave law, Carolina, trade law, bar blacks from all trades. We couldn't trade, so we couldn't conduct business, right? And if you go through all of these, Virginia weapons law forbade blacks from keeping weapons. We didn't have the right to carry. See, all of these things prevented us from progressing economically, socially, even to the point where we couldn't protect ourselves. What else? Kentucky conspiracy law made conspiracy among slaves a capital offense. Louisiana migration law forbade immigration for free black males over 15. That means you couldn't move to another state. You couldn't move about in your own country that you was essentially free from and made a citizen. You see what I'm getting at here, family? And the list goes on. Florida voting law restricted voting to whites only. We're looking at all these laws that was created to stop the progress of black Americans and from preventing us from being part of the American system. Now, I'll go to some northern laws because some people believe, oh, there were no slaves in the north. That's why everybody went up to the north. Now, if you see right here in the top corner, family, you'll see at the top, it says Northern Slave Laws. I'm not making this stuff up. You should go check this book out. Very good book. I have all of his books here. Now, I'm looking at some of the laws. You have Connecticut military law, bar blacks from military service. We couldn't even serve the country that we were released from slavery in. British Plantation Act established codes of conduct for slaves and slave owners. Delaware, New York, Pennsylvania. Who else we got over? Ohio, Illinois, Indiana. Indiana mobility law require blacks to register in order to work and post bond. And some of these with the poll tax, you had to pay a bond to even vote. Maryland Occupation Act excluded blacks from the carpentry trade. You couldn't even build a house. You couldn't even learn how to build a house. But that's right there in Black Labor, White Wealth. Let me move on. Let me move on because I want to show you what we had to go through to be where we were and did what we did. We're in the beginning, family. We're gonna spark this thing up. We're gonna spark this thing up. Now, before I get there, there's some other things that I want to talk to you guys about as well. There's a lot of things I haven't mentioned. Yeah, we mentioned the black codes, Jim Crow laws. What about redlining, which is now has metamorphosized into gentrification? What about the GI Bill in 1994? This was officially known as the Servicemen Readjustment Act, and it was intended to help all veterans after World War II. So black veterans were excluded from many of his benefits, where some of them are hanging on by a thread, still trying to get some of these benefits, let alone for their family. Home loans. Through the bill provided veterans with low interest rates, home loans, banks and loaning institutions, often with the backing of federal policies like redlining, denied loans to black veterans. Education benefits. While the GI Bill covered tuition for veterans, many black veterans were denied admission to predominantly white institutions, forcing them to be overcrowded and underfunded in HBCUs, which they knew they were underfunded. They didn't want to be on the same equal playing field so black people could compete. So the discrimination, the racism, the bigotry, the barriers are limitless when it came through everything that our people have fought for and went through. What about the Social Security Act of 1935? Oh yeah, I'm digging deep, family, because these are some of the things that we need to know, what our people have done, what our people are doing to progress black Americans forward. But we would have black immigrant tethers to come over here and tell us that we're lazy, telling us, oh, you had all these opportunities and this, that, and the other, not understanding why certain things were put into law, even though it has not helped us. Civil rights has helped majority of other people, other minority groups. Affirmative action has majority helped other minority groups, especially white women. DEI, I don't know where that came from, and they made a couple of black people the president, VP of DEI, but it really didn't change anything significantly for black Americans, because we want to keep hanging on to this white supremacist trope that we're ignorant, we're lazy, we're sassy. Yeah, everybody has a low-brow community. Everybody has their knuckleheads. Everybody has their criminal class. But see, you can't come over here to our country and talk about our criminal class, because I've been to the same countries I'm talking about. And believe me, some of these people are very beautiful. Some of these people are building businesses. But unfortunately, majority of the country is unstable. And the majority of the country are black. But yes, we understand. It's the government. It's this, it's that. It's every excuse except for what we have shown to do right here in America under the banner of white supremacy. When it came to the Social Security Act of 1935, black people, mostly in the South, effectively barred millions of our people from receiving benefits, even though they had jobs, paying taxes, etc. This was basically a deliberate compromise made with Southern politicians who feared that if black workers received benefits, it will upset the racial hierarchy. Look at that. You don't want us on equal footing. I'm not finished yet, family. We know a lot of things. The war on drugs. Now, with the war on drugs, they didn't explicitly mention race, but we understand what community it impacted the most, black communities. Policies around mandatory minimum sentencing, especially for crack cocaine, which was prevalent in black neighborhoods. Even to this day, we have law enforcement planning drugs on innocent black people, even to this day. This old clip the other day where a guy went inside, got a truck, like, you got some weed? Like, nah, man, I don't got no weed. I don't even smoke weed. Then they caught him on camera because he thought he blocked his camera planting weed. This is what's going on, family, even till this day. Even till this day. The Anti-Drug Abuse Act of 1986, which basically imposed harder penalties for crack cocaine possession, for powder cocaine. We had all of these things. What about sundown towns? That was mostly in the South, right? Mostly in the Midwest and the South. But it was one of those unwritten rules that Black people were not allowed in town after sundown. These towns use signs, harassment and violence to enforce racial exclusion, keeping Black people from living, working, or even traveling safety in these areas, to a point where we had to create, I forgot the name of this book. I know it's green, but it was a book that a couple of Black people put together, pointing out some safe routes, some safe restaurants, and some safe hotels. So if you were traveling to see family, if you were moving, you had navigation where to go and where not to go, even in our own country. Even though we fought in every major war, they never had respect of the contributions of Black Americans. What about the Fugitive Slave Act? And you can catch that back here with Dr. Claude Anderson, Black Labor, White Wealth, 1793 and 1850, which basically allowed for the capture and return of runaway enslaved people to their owners, right? And the federal government never stepped in and did anything about it. They knew what was going on. This is why reparations is so important. This is why when you come to our country, you shouldn't be speaking about reparations. You should be closing your damn lips, putting your head down, and working hard like they say you do. Don't worry about what we got going on. We haven't forgot the things that we have owed and the debt that has been accumulating in perpetuity. Excuse me. So these are the things we have to take notice of, because there's a stark difference between the two. Don't come and say that you've done more for America than Black Americans. That is damn right disrespectful. Even to the point of the Dred Scott versus Sanford case. And this is the decision rule that Black people, whether freed or enslaved, were not American citizens. This was back in 1857. This was back in 1857, the Dred versus Sanford's case, that we wasn't even American citizens and had no rights under the Constitution. So that kind of flamed things up to a point where tensions over slavery and reinforced the legal notion that Black people were property, not people deserving of rights or recognition. So you can only imagine some of the inventions that didn't get patent, that their slave owners got patent for them. Let's move on. What about our sisters here that contribute a lot to America? See, we're not just talking about to the Black society, but we're talking about we're talking about America in general. Do you guys remember these young ladies here? Especially the top three: Dorothy Vaughan, Katherine Johnson, Mary Jackson. Wait, let me help you. Here they go. Remember this movie? Now, for any of you Black immigrant tethers that are not familiar with these three females, go check this movie out. You're going to get some edumacation. That's with an M, edumacation. That's what you're going to get, okay? Because if we talk about these sisters right here, quote unquote, the hidden figures of NASA, these are the names we need to shout from the rooftops, family, because Mary Jackson, third one down, Katherine Johnson, and Dorothy Vaughan, these women were brilliant. They were brilliant mathematicians and engineers, by the way, that helped launch the United States into space. They were literally the brains behind the NASA's early success during the space race. These three foundational Black Americans. Katherine Johnson's calculations sent astronauts into orbit, and Mary Jackson became NASA's first Black female engineer, while Dorothy Vaughan was one of the pioneering human computers who taught herself and her team Fortran programming. These astonishing, beautiful Black foundational sisters, let me tell you, family, these women just wasn't pushing American forward. They were flying American forward into outer space because their brilliance changed the entire world. They still had to fight against racism because we're living in America, James Brown, and sexism. What Black immigrant contribute to Americans' technological or scientific advancement in this way? I'll wait, but you got a job. Okay, cool. You got a job. Gotcha. And this one sister I do not want to leave out. A lot of people don't talk about Anjay Easley. A lot of people don't talk about this sister right here. Very powerful sister. I don't know if you guys are familiar with her. Okay, the literacy tests were primarily designed to exclude Black Americans from voting. Easley, however, pushed back against the discrimination by helping as many as possible to register vote. Easley in 1955 read an article highlighting twin sisters who worked as human computers at the Aircraft Engine Research Laboratory in Cleveland. The article noted that individuals with strong mathematical skills were needed at the laboratory. Easley immediately applied and 2 weeks later began her 34-year-long career with NASA as a computer scientist and mathematician. Although she had no college degree, her graduation from high school as a valedictorian, coupled with her work ethic, helped her develop the ability to master complex equations needed for her positions. When NASA was created in 1958, she learned that she was one of the only 4 Black American employees in the computational section. Easley was one of the front lines of space research and subsequent space missions that began with the launch of astronaut John Glenn into orbit in 1962. Easley began working on nuclear power rocket systems, including the high energy booster rocket, which had its first success launch in 63. And I'm not going to read all of this, but she is very, very prominent, not to leave the sisters out, because she should be a part of that whole Hidden Figures things as well. Okay. She learned computer programming language like Formula Translating System, also known as the Fortran, and also SOAP, Simple Object Accessing Protocols. Now, to end this all the achievement that she's accomplished, Easley worked with local tutoring programs, encouraging younger students to explore their interests in what will later be known as the STEM field. Okay, so look at right off the back, family, the competition is over, but I'm gonna keep going because I want to hammer some nails. Let's talk about our brother Elijah McCoy. Elijah McCoy, yes, this brother right here who invented the lubricating steam engines, which revolutionized the railroad industry. That him. And this is the whole term behind the real McCoy. Even to this day, you hit up, man, that's the real McCoy right there. That was because of this brother. He held over 50 patents. Can we talk about innovation here? Because McCoy's contributions to the mechanics of transportation impacted not just America, but the entire world. Where are the Black immigrants who invented technologies that reshaped the entire industry like McCoy did? They simply don't exist on this level. Now to the now. They don't exist, family. Let me move on. Benjamin Banneker. He has a from my hometown, DC. He has a school in DC. Okay. And these are people who are very gifted in a lot of things. I thought I had some things highlighted here. Here we go. Let me see if anything else is highlighted. There we go. I thought I had some things highlighted. So I want to point things out. It stated that he assisted with the initial survey of Washington, D.C. Anytime you guys buy a house and you have 100, 200 some forms, 2 or 3 of those forms are the survey of your house, meaning the designing and the architecture of your home. He assisted with the initial survey in creating and designing DC. Okay. He was published abolitionist material south of the Mason-Dixon line, engaged with some of the country's founders in a way no black men have done before. However, Banneker's life also reflects the defining paradox of the early U.S., a land of freedom and opportunity. The freedom and opportunity were insurmountable racial qualifiers. Banneker grew up on a 100-acre tobacco farm owned by his parents, a formerly enslaved man and the daughter of a mixed-race couple. Move on. And guys, you can go check this out at whitehousehistory.org. I'm not going to read it all, but you can reference and check all the materials I have here. Banneker soon connected with his new neighbors with a guy named George Elcott and a land surveyor with passion for astronomy who loaned Banneker technical books and lunar tables. Banneker already sold off some of his land to finance his retirement, and since he was spending less time on the farm, he quickly mastered the discipline of astronomy, right? With all the technical books and all the things that he had and the information, right? President Washington, Secretary of State Thomas Jefferson, whose 1785 book notes on the state of Virginia stated people of African descent were intellectually inferior to whites. We're aware of Banneker's participation. They were aware of Banneker's participation in the evolving of astronomy and the surveying and how things should be built on land. Don't you ever see those guys when they have that yellow tripod and they're looking through that magnifying glass? Holler at your boy Benjamin Banneker. It states here Elcott is attended by Benjamin Banneker, an Ethiopian whose abilities as a surveyor and astronomer clearly prove what Mr. Jefferson concluding the race of men were void of mental endowments was without foundation, meaning that these guys are smart. What are you talking about? The work of enslaved people thus undergirded construction of the capital whose territory Banneker had helped survey, from the clearing and paving of roads to the quarrying and the transporting of stone to the building of the White House and Capitol building. So from the rooter to the tutor, from the start to the finish, Black Americans were creating and building. Not only did we design and survey, we also built the White House and Capitol. Holler at your boy. These are the things that we're talking about when we say they were the foundation of America. Okay, because don't forget the Black lady who actually sewn the U.S. flag. I digress. This is what this guy states here. Who stated this? He says here, James McHenry, a prominent Maryland statesman, attesting to the author's gifts. I consider this Negro as fresh proof that the powers of the mind are disconnected with the color of the skin. I consider this Negro as fresh proof that the powers of the mind are disconnected with the color of the skin, meaning that your intelligence have nothing to do with your skin color. Your phenotype and your bone structure, your wise nose, your student nose, your big forehead, your small forehead, your small head, your large brain, doesn't matter. Has nothing to do with your intelligence level. Because we understand what Benjamin Banneker did, right? Let me scroll down here a little bit so you guys can read on your own. We have to understand a lot of things. He was an astronomer, he was a farmer, he was a mathematician who helped design the layout of DC and mapping the nation's capital, which is foundational to the fabric of this country. Because without Banneker family, our nation's capital would not look the way it does today. And if you look at everything, everything's aligned straight. You can see the reflecting pool, you can see the monument, and you can see Abraham Lincoln statue all aligned in one straight line. You try to look at it, wait a minute, is that aligned perfectly? Now the Earth should probably maybe off 2 or 3 degrees, but over time we know the Earth shifts. But this is what this brother has done. Predicting solar eclipses, build a wooden clock. I mean, he's done all of these great things. Again, where's the equivalent from Black immigrants? Again, there's nothing to compare. Now, when it comes to the wooden clock, shout out goes to the Nubian Egyptians. We understand you created the sundial. So I'm not oblivious, family. The way that the sun, rotated and how the shade, yeah, you know what I'm talking about. I'm not that damn technical, but let me move on. And these are some honorable mentions. Our sister, our beautiful sister, Patricia Bath. Oh, this sister right here. Now, what we have to understand about Dr. Patricia Bath, she was the first Black woman to receive a medical patent for her invention, the laser phyco probe, which revolutionized cataract surgery and restored sight to thousands of people worldwide, which generated the field of LASIK surgery. You see that? Now you can go in 10 minutes and it correct your eyesight. Now you got 2020, 2015. Now you're like Superman. You can see. No, you're not like Superman. You can't see through wall, but you can see better than you ever had before. Shout out goes out to Patricia Bath, because my wife got LASIK surgery. I said, babe, you know who started this whole field of restoring people's sight and LASIK surgery and cataract surgery? Dr. Patricia Bath. Her work didn't just stop in America, okay? It infected the whole world. It changed the whole world. It saved sight around the whole entire world. Another undeniable mark from a foundational Black American. Lord have mercy. There's no comparison. I hate to say it. It really isn't. What about our brother Otis Boykins? Now, one of the things, let me go down here. Did you guys know that he invented the pacemaker? He filed a patent for a resistor that paved the way for his most notable invention, the pacemaker. You're welcome. You're welcome, world. You're welcome, Black immigrant tethers. This is what we were doing over here. But see, every time, and people are always saying Black Wall Street, Black Wall Street, Black Wall Street, not just Black Wall Street, Tulsa, Oklahoma, but Black Wall Streets, Black business districts, before the underminement of the mass illegal immigration of them dropping off people inside of Black neighborhoods. They said, you know what? Instead of bombing Black people from above, like we did in Tulsa, Oklahoma, instead of creating another scenario and horrifying event like the Red Summer of 1919, instead of just going around killing Black people, let's destroy them within. Let's get some people who envy them. Let's get some people that we have colonized their minds, and let's drop them off near and in Black neighborhoods. Let's do that. Let's let them undermine them on social media, have them spit vitriol and divisive rhetoric back and forth. And we can keep their hand ties and they'll never get reparations, because we'll have people that look like them. Then they're going to mix and intermingle. You're going to have foundational Black Americans with Jamaicans and Trinidadians and Nigerians and Kenyans and Uganda. They're all going to mix up. They're like, well, I'm half and I'm his. And they're never going to find out who they really are. We're going to confuse the whole thing. That's what we're going to do. What about our sister Valerie Thomas? What did she do? Are y'all guys familiar with Valerie Thomas' family? Thank you, 3D printing. Thank you, projection movie screens. Thank you for holograms. For you guys who got those expensive cars, you got the head-up display. Thank our sister Valerie Thomas. Black American NASA scientist, inventor of 3D movie technology. Are you fascinated by the technology that makes 3D movies like Avatar and Dune so realistic? Look at the technology she has built, family, that they're using in movies today. NASA scientist, physicist, inventor, and pioneer in 3D projection technology. That's why you're getting your native 4K on your projectors in your movie rooms and your theaters, or when you go out to the movies. This sister right here. That's why you have 3D printing, because of this sister right here. That's why you have all of these very creative visual effects because of Valerie Thomas. I'm gonna read your comments, family. Let me go through this very quickly because we know about your Martin Luther King, your Malcolm X, your Rosa Parks, Frederick Douglass, Harriet Tubman, your W.E.B. Du Bois, who was not a foundational Black American. I'll point that out. But we have all of these significant people. You go down the list here, okay? Show one more. We talk about Marion Van Britton Brown on Wednesday, event of the home security system. You're welcome, Ring. You're welcome. You're welcome. Alice Parker, early inventor of the gas-powered heating fairs. You know, Black people don't like to be cold. Man, shit, it's cold in here. Hey, turn up the heat. Black people don't like to be cold, and we don't like to be hot. We like to be around 75 to 85 degrees, you know. Most of us anyway. The ones I met. Dr. Charles Drew, pioneering blood transfusion, was revolutionary during the war so people can transfuse blood and save thousands of people's lives. We already know about Gerd Morgan with the gas mask and traffic light. We spoke about Benjamin Banneker. You got Percy Julian, chemist known for developing synthetic versions of important hormones like progesterone. Lonnie Johnston, who also was a NASA engineer. He invented the super soaker. That was just plain out fun. Thank you, Lonnie. These are the achievements that we have done, family. Yeah. These are the achievements. So let's be clear. I'm not saying that African and Caribbean immigrants haven't contributed to the world. Not saying that. I'm saying to America. Because if we take figures like Marcus Garvey, originally from Jamaica, he played a huge role in uplifting Black consciousness with his Pan-Africanist movement, right? And his vision for that. And as I stated before, W.E.B. Du Bois, whose parents were from Haiti. W.E.B. Du Bois, whose parents were from Haiti. Okay. But Garvey's Back to Africa movement, for example, was about looking away from America, from which we are from all the work we have done here. So we have to look at that as well. Okay. African leaders like Nelson Mandela did incredible things for their countries. But again, we're talking about America, and this is only going to sting. This is only going to hurt. This is only going to poke the Black immigrant tethers from the Caribbean and Africa, okay? Because we understand Nelson Mandela's fight against apartheid in South Africa. But now for civil rights in America, a lot of our fights, a lot of the things that we're removing here inspired, and we supported you guys in the freedom of your own country. It's really like at this point comparing apples to raisins. That's what we're talking about. So if we talk about the facts, foundational Black Americans have been here since the very beginning, building this country, fighting its wars, and still doing that, and making this country a global superpower. How can you have all these achievements intellectually? You see that? We're not just good in sports. We're not just good in cooking, but we have changed the entire globe, and we've made America a superpower. The contributions of Black immigrants simply don't stack up in terms of influence on American history and progress. Now, we're not minimizing. No, we're not. And definitely not me. I'm not minimizing anyone's effort, but if we're talking facts, the truth is clear. As I pointed out, inventors with the pacemaker like Otis Boykins, to Valerie Thomas, who created the 3D imaging. Black American descendants of slaves, known as foundational Black Americans, U.S. freedmen, have contributed more to this nation than anyone else. Because if you look from start to finish, If we're building the very foundation and we're tilling the ground and we're farming and we're picking, and then we revolutionize by inventing and innovating, who else contribute more? So the next time somebody tries to tell you or tell me and downplay what our folks have done and what we are doing, I got a couple of things. I'm going to first tell them, because I'm a nice guy, do your homework, do a little bit of research. And if that's not beneficial, then go back and try it at your homeland. Let me see what you guys are saying. We got Robert T. Good evening to you, sir. Jermaine Anderson, thank you for moderating, sir. I see a lot of people ain't really chatting today. New listener, FBA B1. B1 to you as well, brother. Well, family, I just had to give an old-fashioned butt whooping because nobody likes facts. Nobody likes truth. And again, for those people who want to know what those laws are, you can go research them, or you can get them in the appendix of Black Labor, White Wolf. And it's a great read. It's a very small book packed with a lot of information, because one of the problems is a lot of these immigrant tethers don't know our history. And then another bad part is they don't want to know our history. Because see, when you're ignorant, you can say whatever you want. But once you know the truth, your body has this weird way of making you feel when you start to tell lies. You see, it's just easy to come over here, get all the degrees as you state, build all the businesses as you state, and you've done more for America. I call cap, and I know it's cap. So family, that's all I have for you guys tonight. You guys have a great and wonderful evening. Be one.